Welcome back to another episode of Psycosmos. Today we have Vicky here, who is the author of The Science of the Sacred Secretion, which was a phenomenal book. I just finished reading it about last week. Vicky has a lot of really great wisdom and information on the sacred secretion and her own experiences. So I'm hoping that she can share some of that with us today. Vicky, go ahead and take the floor.
Hi. I don't know. We've compared to some other people you've had on the podcast. My normal life's quite boring, really. I obviously follow the sacred secretion practices, and I wrote The Science of the Sacred Secretion, and then I just kept researching, and I've got another one as well. But in my day-to-day life, I was a teacher until the recent summer holidays, and now I'm going to be teaching teacher training. I'm going to be working at university. So, yeah, I'm actually just pretty normal in my day-to-day life. But, you know, when I come home, that's when, you know, all the spiritual stuff comes out. And I really like being in the classroom environment with children, because you can really bring that magic into the essence of teaching as well, when you're talking about fairies and going to look for all kinds of things. So that's really exciting. Although you do have to be careful of the odd parent that says that things like magic and yoga are witchcraft and they're not to be spoken.
Yeah. I feel as though a lot of that those stereotypes have really come out in the last couple 100 years. I mean, it's a multi-generational assumption. And I understand why. It's because you know, maybe people who were doing those practices, who didn't have as much information as like a lot of the resources that we do today. You know, if you're doing things like but even something as simple as prayer, yoga, meditating, you can actually do those things improperly. And if you do, then you can really open yourselves up to being hit with like negative energies from just around the world. And I think that's probably why those stereotypes arose. But if you do a lot of these processes properly, it's actually probably the most beneficial thing that you can ever do in your whole life. And it's about doing it properly. So it's not, you know, I completely agree with you. The stereotype that it's witchcraft or evil or the devil's work or whatever, you know, that's a really outdated stereotype. Now we understand that there's a true science to this. It is a mathematical, formulaic, scientific process. We understand enough about the anatomy of the human body and the chemicals and everything else that and the functions of the body and the systems of the body. We have enough information now where you can really piece together the true story of how we should be living in tandem with nature, in tandem with God, in tandem with the universe, in tandem with reality, and trying to harness the most positivity and love out of that. And I think that the sacred secretion process really plays into it. I was really taken aback. I really enjoyed your book on it, because when I first started researching the sacred secretion almost 3 years ago, there was not a lot of information on it. Your book was one of the only ones, along with a few other authors. So we're actually writing a book ourselves now, between the four of us guys. So we're writing a book now, and the sacred secretion is going to be the big focal point of that book. This is Tyler and I'm Matt. We have both experimented with we probably should have started with that, but we had so many technical difficulties in the beginning. So yeah, I'm Matt and this is Tyler. We both ourselves have had a number of sacred secretion experiences, probably the most out of the whole group, just because we've really tried to stick with it the most. Tyler actually recently last Friday, yeah, he was just going through his cycle. He's a Libra, so he was going through his cycle when the moon was in Libra, and he had a pretty good experience. You want to share what you had?
Yeah, so I was actually doing like it was like almost like a life coach type environment, and we were doing breathing work, and it was like I really got into it. I really was just focusing on the breath work, my energy, and it was about like 2 or 3 minutes in, and I had a rush of all the vibrations, and it was so blissful and peaceful, and it just it made the weekend very, very positive, and I think I'm still riding that positive wave through this week.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's something we've experimented with a ton over the last couple of years. So as people who have had real hands-on experience with feeling those energetic vibrations and feeling those different portals in your body kind of open, and just kind of downloading all of that love and that high vibrations, it's been the most beneficial thing for us in our lives, especially during so much turmoil and everything else in the news and the politics of everything. So it's been a wonderful ride, but it really wouldn't be around if it wasn't for people like Vicky, who have written such great, again, it's The Science of the Sacred Secretion. It's a really, really great synopsis on just the process itself and a lot of the science of it as well. I wanted to ask you, your kind of initial findings and of when like you first started practicing this and when you first kind of encountered this process. What were you looking for initially, or what maybe how did you feel? Things like that. Yeah.
It was actually just divine synchronicities that brought me to it. So I was traveling in Australia. That's how my story starts. I was traveling in Australia, and I remember doing a particular meditation where I was just focusing on sort of grounding, and I had this really phenomenal sort of feeling everyone else explains, where you have, this shot of electric that feels like it's going up your back, and this really euphoric feeling. I remember going to my front door and just watching ants, and I just watched ants for about an hour, just walking around on the step, and it's just in this real state of awe. And I'd never experienced anything like that before. I'd done meditation and things, but this was just incredibly intense. And so that just started me into looking deeper into all the spiritual practices that I'd always been into anyway, but just really honed in on them because I was very young at the time. I was 22 when I was traveling. So I'd gone through all the drinking stage and everything else. And now I was that just really regrounded me as such. I feel like that really brought me back to earth and was like, wow, this is actually something. And then, through looking at things like the chakras and the pineal gland, I came across, as I think everyone does, the John St. Julian video where he's talking about the sacred secretion on YouTube. And that just resonated instantly. And I started looking. And again, like you said, I was 22, so this maybe like 6 years ago it originally happened. And there really wasn't much out there at all. There was, Carey and Hilton Hotimer and Thomas Burgoyne, or however you pronounce it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But they were quite historic, and so I really felt like I wanted to look into more of the recent science that we've all conducted, like biochemistry and genetics and things like that, and see if I could work something out. And I did, and my basic teachings that I found at the time went into the science of the sacred secretion, but that was more me as a projection, like trying to reach out and find other people, because there was no one else doing it, especially in my physical reality. There's just no one else that was doing anything kind of spiritual. So I put that out there with the intention of hoping to bring into my field other people who are also practicing, so we could discuss and share experiences. And it did. And from that, I carried on researching, and I did write another book, but it's like 500 pages and it's really quite chunky. And that was just everything that I kept researching and putting together. And in the end, it got to the point where I need to stop. It's 500 pages. No one's going to even consider buying it if it's any bigger than that. It's like a manual. It's just too much. And I've kind of just gone full circle since that. So that was released 2020, so beginning of last year. And since then, I've, especially with everything in the news, as you said, with how crazy the physical reality looks at the moment, I've really just come back to the idea of not needing a physical teacher as such, not needing someone else to tell you what to do. Because if you look through all the historical books and the teachings, they all talk about the same thing essentially. They call it prism, sacred secretion, ichor, ambrosia, nectar. It's all the same essence, but there's all different ways of wording it, different rules. And I think you can just get very bogged down with that. And that's what I get more than anything, is people messaging me saying, well, how do I do it? And it's like, well, it's kind of you need to work out what's right for you and your own sort of soul purpose. And so that just seems to be where I'm at the moment, is the idea of just trying to use myself as a teacher rather than keep trying to find things externally, just really coming back and just trusting my own which I think is something that's testing everybody at the moment in the external world, like just trusting your own instinct and not what everyone else is trying to project onto you or tell you what to do. Like just kind of honoring yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I do agree. I think a lot of people, because the vibrations of the whole collective consciousness is rising, people are starting to they're starting to awaken, you know, and this has been something that a lot of people have been talking about. But I also think that the people who are awakening are finding it difficult because there are still so many people who are not awoken yet to what's really actually going on, and the truths of the reality that we live in, and how to, as you said, turn inwardly and try to find those answers inwardly. You know, a lot of the ancient mystics talk about, for example, the Akashic Records, which is like you essentially astral projecting, or at the very least using your soul to guide you to this library or this record of all knowledge. And a lot of people who get really, really good with this claim that they can go to the Akashic library, look at the Akashic records and find the answers that they're looking for. It's more of like a collective consciousness which is tuned into all the knowledge of the universe. It's an extremely difficult thing to do. I don't think I've done it personally, but that's just one of the many examples of how turning inwardly and stimulating that pineal gland will give you the ability to connect to realms which are far higher. Sometimes, if you do it incorrectly, far lower, but still different realms on different vibrational patterns. And you know, a lot of people that are really getting involved with this, I feel like they're getting you know, like they're getting maybe a little lost, or they don't have the proper guidance. And to your point, yeah, everybody should be turning within themselves, and to the point where they're having that conversation with themselves to make the best choices for them and the best practices for them to guide them in their spiritual journey. I still think that there are a lot of people who are in that stage where they do need some sort of teacher, and that's where people like us and people like you come in, where we're writing these novels. We've had years of experience with this practice. We've been researching, and we have a divine calling to some extent to help people. I mean, I feel like, you know, we're teaching stuff. You are a teacher yourself. We are all kind of like wise teachers, trying to just help people as much as possible. And it's funny too, because, you know, sometimes we get some really bad blowback from people who don't want to kind of accept reality a little bit. I have plenty of stories like that, but yeah, it's so far, I'm really, really happy that, like you said, you wrote the book so that you can meet more people, and now we're here talking and having a conversation because of that. Because you were able to put the action in place, do the research, get the book out. I picked it up because I want to have a library of information on the sacred secretion, and your book definitely fits in there very, very well. So I really, really enjoyed the way that you had written the book. And so far, we've been working on our book. I think we're like 3 months in, and we're somewhere around like 50,000 words, which is pretty good for us. We're writing out like a couple of chapters a week, but it has been really daunting. Writing a novel is difficult, and we're probably going to be around that 500-page mark too. I think by when all said and done here, we're already at somewhere like around 200 or 300 pages, and I think that we're probably only a third of the way done. So we're just going to keep trucking along with it too. But we have a lot to share, not only about the process itself, but all of the historical, the political, the spiritual implications of history, and how this has really made such a major impact in all the cultures of the world, but people don't know it today. And in fact, it's almost kind of laughably thrown in people's faces that they don't understand or know about this process. It's changing people's lives for the better. And people are still really they're really ignorant of it. They don't know anything about it, which is, you know, okay, you can't be blamed for not knowing what you don't know. But a lot of people, they want to be spiritually guided to something greater, but they are also really closed-minded, either in their minds or in their hearts. And so that those kinds of portals or chakras need to kind of open up a little bit more. People need to be more open-minded. They need to be more open-hearted. And if they are, then then the universe will lead those people down their respective paths. And probably a lot of people watching this video right now are probably on that path. But again, you know, it's mad respect and much props to you for writing the books that you have. I can tell that we're probably around the same age because we're in our late 20s. So I would assume that you're about there. So it's just like there aren't a lot of people our age who are even discussing this or doing this. So it's really, really humbling, and it's really nice to talk with somebody who's around our age, who's written already 2 books on probably the greatest human experience that one could possibly have. So you know, again, much respect and a lot of really great praises for you, because it's a really difficult thing to do, and you will get a lot of I don't know if you have, but we make a lot of videos on the topic, and we get a lot of feedback, we get a lot of comments, and like at least 80% of them are positive, and maybe 10 to 20% of them are just people who are very, very angry. And it would really behoove them to take interest in listening to what we're talking about in terms of humbling yourself and looking inward and trying to meditate and do yoga and attain all those practices that those people are really looking for internally, whether they know it or not. They just haven't realized how miserable they are in their lives. And I mean, I don't blame them. Look at what the state of the world is in right now. The world is going to chaos, and it's all most of it is planned and coordinated, and it's meant to lower the vibrations of people, because the people who are coordinating all these efforts know that this is the time where people are going to start arising and waking up. So the faster that we as a collective get on board with being each other's neighbors and loving each other and doing what's right for the world, the faster I think that this world will heal, and the collective consciousness will heal, and we will shift up to higher vibrations as a whole. And that is really the goal of what we do here at Psycosmos. We want at least everybody to know about the sacred secretion process, the Kundalini, the Christ consciousness, the Chrism, things like that. That we want people to know how to more positively impact their lives. And from what we can tell from the extensive years and years and almost over a decade of research that we've done, the sacred secretion is the penultimate. It's the pinnacle point of self worship, self control, self harnessing of your own internal energies, self connection to the higher powers, God, the universe, however the user wants to kind of see it. And that is really our goal, is we want to change the world in that sense. And I can tell that you do too, which after reading your book, which is why I really wanted to meet you. I wanted to say thank you for all of the effort and the hard work that you've put in. It's a blessing that people are really waking up to this kind of stuff and getting really actively involved in it. So I wanted to extend that and say thank you for all your hard work. It's really appreciated by people like us.
Yeah, well, thank you, and well done for you making videos. I've not got the confidence to make videos, and I'm very good with the written word, but vocally I get my words mixed up quite a bit, so my videos would not be anything to what yours are. So yeah, well done for taking that information and putting it out there visually, because I think a lot of people would prefer just that 30-minute video compared to a big 300-page book. So I think it's obviously very beneficial. Yeah, but
we've made a lot of videos that have just gotten removed. They've just gotten deleted or removed, and I mean, it's almost been really daunting and tiring, because we will put in hours of effort into a video, and then YouTube or TikTok will just take it down. They don't like what we're sharing, but that tells us that we're hitting the nail on the head, and we're getting exactly what they don't want other people to see across. And we've been shadow banned so many times where YouTube won't promote our videos, they won't promote our messages, they won't promote our information. They consistently keep our subscriber count low, even though the analytics show that it really should be growing. Oftentimes, I think what's happening is they're not these tech companies. And I mean, tech is actually my background. I work in tech. I have my 4-year degree in tech. The tech companies are really trying to silence people right now, because people are really starting to discover things. They're starting to uncover things, and because of that, it's really harming the narrative which is being created, which is like, eat your McDonald's, drink your liquor, have extensive amounts of sex, and be rude to one another, don't talk to your neighbors. It's this horrible mentality that they're really trying to promote, because they want people to be miserable, they want people to be closed-minded, locked in a bubble, all while believing that they are the most open-minded and loving people in the whole world. So yeah, it's the world is in a really harmful state right now, and I think that if more people, especially viewers at home, if they were interested in more things like this, which you should all definitely pick up a copy of Vicky's book because it's really good. If more people were interested in these types of conversations, I think that we would be advancing society so much further than what it is today. And unfortunately, that's not the case. Unfortunately, we're seeing a regression in society, and people are becoming bitter and angry, and it's become very materialized and monetized, and the love is put on a back burner, unfortunately. And it's sad, because love is one of the highest vibrations that you can achieve, and by loving your neighbor and loving others, you can connect with everyone and everything a lot more. So if it wasn't for people like you, we wouldn't have really even gotten started, because I bought this book a while ago, but we really started this journey, I want to say like 2.5 years ago or 3 years ago, with just learning about the sacred secretion and then beginning to experiment with it. And what we found is that while a lot of our old high school friends are aging like cheese, we are actually aging like a fine wine, because we're not excessively drinking or excessively wasting our fluids by having copious amounts of sex, or we're not doing drugs or any of that kind of crap. So we're really honing in on the energies of the universe. And I've always kind of had a baby face. I look like I'm 12, which is fine, but I've always kind of looked this way, and I'm happy, because eventually when I'm 40, I'm probably still going to look this way. Whereas there are people I went to high school with who are already looking like they're in their mid 30s. And it's because they excessively drink and they do bad habits, and they don't want to hear anything bigger. They don't want to focus on anything bigger. They just want to go to their shitty jobs and make their shitty wages, and then spend their money on shitty things. So like you said, we kind of got that college party drinking mentality kind of out of our system in our young 20s. Now we're aging more like a fine wine, whereas our friends are like still doing the same thing they were 10 years ago, and they look like cheese. So it's been I'm obviously, I'm making jokes, I'm not specifically targeting anybody, but it's just funny because I'm going through like old high school photos, and I look at like I'll go through my feed and I'll see people from high school or whatever, and I'm just, I don't know, I'm blown away. I mean, these people, a lot of they don't look happy, and the people who are posting on social media the most, they don't ever look like truly happy. You can see in their eyes they're a little dead inside, because they're living a fake life. They're living in that simulated reality where everything is everything is my reputation, and I care what other people think about me, and blah blah blah. It's like I don't really care what anybody thinks about me, and I feel like that's why people respect me more, because I work really hard, and I try to help as many people as I can, and I live for myself, I live for the universe, I live for God, I live for that internal dialogue. I try to maximize my output every day. I try to maximize my energy every day. And that also makes us highly competitive, because not in a bad way, but it makes us competitive where we want to really try to grow bigger, hopefully, than some of these people who are just making garbage content, but they get millions and millions of followers just because it's garbage content. We're not going for like the lowest common denominator. Like, we're not trying to focus on like children as our audience, because they probably won't fully understand our concepts, right? So we're really not going for low-hanging fruit when it comes to the viewers. We're trying to go for those people who are really searching to spiritually enlighten, spiritually change, spiritually evolve, and I can tell that you're doing the exact same by writing your books, which are so well thought out, and they have so much great detailed information on it, especially for people. I mean, the title of the damn book is The Science of the Sacred Secretion. She has a lot of scientific information in here, And I will still talk with doctors. I mean, I actually, on our TikTok last week or so, we had this guy who was pretending to be a doctor. He had a, you know, an anonymous profile, but he's like, I'm a doctor. I'll tell you, you should do all these things and take your prescription pills and take your, you know, your shots and everything, whatever. So I basically just brought up to him about the thymus gland, and this guy who claimed to have 20 years of medical experience was saying that adults don't have a thymus gland. They don't have a working thymus gland, which is incorrect. It's just scientifically not true. So we have these people who are PhDs, which are, by the way, doctors of philosophy. So that's what a PhD stands for. So they think very high and mighty of themselves, but at the end of the day, philosophy is more theoretical than it is factual. So a lot of the science that these people are clinging to, who argue against the science, the true science of the sacred secretion, they're just using, none of them are actually peer reviewing or creating new science. What they're doing is they're going off of like the old science from the 1930s or 40s or 50s or 60s, which has not been touched or rewritten. And this is kind of the way that the medical institutions have propped themselves up. They are purposefully misleading, I think, a lot of medical practitioners, or at the very least, they're not having them become independent medical practitioners. They're having these people just regurgitate already known knowledge, but the knowledge is not evolving. So of course, they're not going to know about the sacred secretion, even though the symbol of the caduceus is plastered over every hospital all throughout the entire world. So, you know, it's very interesting to me that there's so many different parallels that kind of run with this. And I'm kind of rambling at this point, but the point I was making was, you know, even people like us can do more research because we're more interested in it, we're more hungry, and we have the energy to be able to look into things like the science, the truths of the sacred secretion, and be able to even write books about them as a knowledgeable expert, as somebody who's worked more with the process than a doctor would have, because the doctor is now looking at the case studies which show different things like the influence of seminal ejaculation on the cerebrospinal fluid, or they're not looking at the science between the linkage between like the thymus and the heart and the brain and the spleen and different organs which do different things within the human body, or like the parallels between like the DMT production and the pineal gland. None of these doctors are looking at these things, so it's becoming an issue. I don't think a lot of these people are looking at some of these sciences. So that basically what I was trying to get at was we have a big stake in this because we're really interested in it, and we're reading the science and we're learning new things. And we're hoping that other people will at least embrace and be open to these types of processes, and maybe try to teach people to harness them without trying to just disprove or argue them when there's clearly a case to be made for its existence, and it absolutely does exist. So that was my little rambling speech. I talk a lot, but yeah, if you had anything that you wanted to kind of add to that point too.
A few things came up through, but I don't know if I can remember them now. One was going back to what you said about the PhDs. I mean, I'm doing mine part-time at the moment, but to be honest, it's just tick boxing. To get a PhD, you just need to hit this criteria and tick it off, and here you go, Bob's your uncle. You now have the right to say anything you want, compared to, like I said, people like us, where we haven't got to follow a certain criteria. We're not paid by certain people to only be able to find certain things. We literally open and we look at everything, and we're objective, and we come to a truth. And again, going back to that own your heart's knowing or observation. So we've experienced the sacred secretion. We know what it feels like. You can't deny that. You can't make up those feelings that happened. Whereas, you know, a bad example might be someone gets their shot and they start having a fit, and you see that, but it wasn't logged on theirs or yellow cards, so therefore it didn't happen, kind of thing. And then you'd get doctors saying, no, but look at this data, it doesn't happen, even though you've physically seen it, but that's not data. And it, again, I think what we really need to go back to, which is what the ancients were doing, was the idea of, yeah, you have that data, but you also have your innate human knowing and your ability to see and understand and be able to take that in and make an objective decision for yourself. And I mean, I'm not being funny, but the worst thing that can happen if you practice a sacred secretion is that you get healthier. Like, that's it. All the practice with it, clean, sleep, light, grounding, like cleaning your water supply. The worst thing that could possibly happen is for 3 days your body gets a break and everything it needs.
Right. And I to add on to that, I think that one of the other things too is you can let it consume your ego. If you're doing it improperly, I mean, really that's what it is. If you do it incorrectly, where you're not taking advantage of it and you're not doing the right practices, maybe you could persuade yourself into believing something crazy, like you're an egomaniac who thinks that they're better than everybody because you're doing this process wrong. That might be like the only thing, to add to your point, is like an ego boost for somebody who's lazy with it. You know, that's like the worst thing, like somebody just talking themselves into thinking they're better than everybody. That I think, or getting healthier. Yeah, basically there's really no major blowback if you do the process correctly. That's the best way to explain it, because I think that in history there probably was at least a few people who have experimented with the raising of the energy in the Kundalini who weren't able to do it the proper way and maybe half-assed it or something, and they may have had negative drawbacks, which had other people believe negative stereotypes about the process itself, because the people who were doing it didn't have all the full information. Well, now we live in a technological age where we have the internet and we're all communicating and we're all giving each other feedback and we're all culminating this essence, probably more so than everybody combined in the last few hundred years. So now more and more people exponentially are waking up to this. They're experimenting with this. They're finding that it's a real process. The body really does have energy that you can manipulate inside of it to kind of create the best lifestyle for yourself. And that, I think, is going to be the thing that really bridges the gap and brings everybody together, hopefully in the future. That's really cool that you're actually getting your PhD. I did not know that. Did you want to share anything, like how difficult is it so far to get your PhD?
To be honest, I'm only doing it part-time at the moment, and I've only just started it, and I'm doing it distance learning because it's not a shadow of doubt that taking the shot's going to be a mandate soon. So to do anything at all. So even down to teaching, I gave up physical teaching so that I could do remote teaching, training other teachers, because I know what's happening. I know what's going to happen. I know if I stayed in teaching, I wouldn't have a job after Christmas. So putting those various things in place. But so I'm focusing at the moment, it's in psychology and looking at the effects of light on mental health, because bachelor's degree was in obviously teaching, and I did my master's on children's mental health, and I'm doing my psychology degree on looking at the effects of natural light on mental health and how it lowers cortisol and increases serotonin and all balances that. But I'm doing that. I'm still very early in that. That may take another 5 years because I'm doing it part-time if I get to finish it, because, you know, it might even get mandated that you have to have a shot to even work online. But playing it all as it goes, really, and seeing where it leads. And my partner in next month starts his degree in becoming a chiropractor. So that's really cool, because that obviously links with everything that I'm studying as well. So I'm super excited of everything he's going to get taught and all the books he's going to bring home, and I'll just be able to delve into those as well. Yeah,
that's awesome. Hey, kudos to the two of you, because you're making the real change in the world. I mean, that actually my big plan sometime in the next 10 years is to get my PhD. Of course, all of the things that you said were true, and all of the concerns that you said were true. I would have probably started my master's this year, which, again, I'm just gonna say this, and maybe I'm speaking a little out of turn. The education system, if you are a above average intelligent person, is not difficult to get through. It is literally like, as Vicky said, it's literally just checking tick boxes and just do. Oh, you got an assignment, you got to do it. You got a paper, you got to do. You got a thesis, you got to do it, and you got a presentation, you got to do it. It's not a difficult process. I think it's extremely overvalued, and the only reason is because we put such a high payment price on a degree. No matter where you go in the world these days, it's somewhat expensive, and so the assumption is that you'll get a job like straight out of getting your PhD, which is not the case at all. A lot of PhD people, if they just go to be like a doctor and they lazily go through the process and they don't have really any ambition, they were just told by their parents their whole lives to be a doctor. Those types of people, they don't ever really make anything of themselves because they don't have the drive to actually do anything with the degree. So it just kind of wastes itself. Whereas people who are like us, who like, I think that's really admirable that you're going for your PhD. I mean, I want to get my PhD just so I can shove it in people's faces. That's my personal thing. I want to basically say, look, I'm telling you that this sacred secretion process exists, and I can explain it scientifically to you. And what's going to shut up 99% of sheep who are stupid, who think that PhDs actually matter, all you got to do is say, I have a PhD, I'm smart. And then they're going to say, oh my God, you're a genius. You're a genius, even though, like, is it really genius to spend $200,000 for a piece of paper that says you're smart? Is it really that smart? You know what I mean? I'm still going to do it. So you know what I mean? I'm going to do it because society has such a dumb standard on it. But mainly I want, not for the actual sake of throwing in people's faces, I want the resources, because the people who get their PhDs actually have a good bit of resources where they can go to different scientific things and whatnot. That's why we started Psycosmos, because I'm the CEO of Psycosmos. So I have a registered business. I can actually say that I'm a CEO. I'm a chief executive officer. I make big decisions, financial decisions, decisions for the direction of the company and things like that. When I tell people that, people are like, wow, that's impressive, but when they hear CEO, they think I'm making like millions of dollars by myself, which I'm not. I make good money, but I'm not like some kind of mega millionaire who's trying to like, share how to make billions of dollars with the world or anything. We're not even really trying to make any profits with Psycosmos. We're trying to use the profits so that we can get more marketing out there, so that we can teach more people about this kind of stuff. That's really what we're trying to do. But I tell people I'm the CEO so that people will listen, and they actually do. They're like, wow, this kid must be smart. He owns his own business. It's like, no, I'm just as dumb as everybody else. But I can say I have all these credentials and all these things, and then that makes me sound smart. So to me, that has never made sense, because the effort to actually get degrees is, for me at least, it was not hard. I basically like practically cheated through college, and I ended up graduating with a 3.7 GPA out of 4. So, I basically cheated my way through college just because I was in tech, and all the tech teachers were lazy. They put all their tests online, and you could just Google the questions. That was it. So it's like, I don't know. For me personally, I thought it was a joke. I thought it was ridiculous, the amount of money that they expected to get from me for it. But again, that degree, I get to hold it over people's heads and say I know more about technology than most people, and people believe it. I know for a fact that there's some 18-year-old kid who's sitting there at, probably in his parents' basement, who like knows way more about tech than I do, because he actually is super interested in it. It's his calling in life. Well, for us, this type of stuff, the metaphysical and the physical scientific proof of the sacred secretion and all of the history and the people who have worked on getting these messages out, all of the history of that, that is our calling, which is going to make us experts on it far more than any PhD or doctor or anything, because we're going to actually be able to sit down and talk in the same exact terms, and not even like, you'll have the certification, and one day I will, but if we didn't, we could still talk circles. I know people who have gone and gotten 4-year degrees or master's degrees in like medical fields, and they either don't do anything with them, or they think that they're like geniuses in anatomy, and then I can just talk circles around them, and they're like, none of that's true. That's not true, because I don't have a source. I can't tell you why it's not true, but I just think it's not, because I never heard of it before, because I've never heard of it, and I have a degree in the medical field. I'm a fucking genius, so I should know. But no. So anyway, yeah. Yeah, right. So anyway, yeah, that's my little rant. I just find it really ridiculous that people, it's like there's real science. People don't want to learn new things. They want to have their opinions validated. We want to learn new things. We want to open our mind. We want to learn what's right and what's wrong. and you can actually make enough of an educated thesis today with the amount of information that's out on the internet. Yes, you have to wade through what's BS and what's not BS. But if you have really good intuition and you have enough life experience, you can actually get through wading through that BS a lot better than other people. And I think we're kind of seeing that as a social experiment right now. So anyway, yeah, I'll pass it back to you if you had anything else that you wanted to add on that point. But I know that we're probably getting a little low on time shortly here. So we'll probably end up wrapping it up soon. But is there anything that you'd like to add or any talking points that you wanted to discuss before we kind of wrap up here?
I was kind of just going to jump on what you said before about, like, one of the main reasons I took my PhD part-time was because then it takes 6 years, and the science that they bring out, that's peer reviewed by someone who agreed with it before,
right.
that is very expensive. If you go and try to access these journals, you can either 9 times out of 10 only get an abstract which tells you absolutely nothing, or you have to pay a fortune to get it. But I was very fortunate whilst I was studying the sacred secretion, that I did have access to all those journal articles because I was at university, and that's how I can produce stuff like that. And just like you'll be able to once you're re-enrolled on the university system as well, because you then have access to that. So it's playing the system at its own game as well. So putting yourself in there and just getting all that information for as cheap as you can, really, because everything at the moment's just trying to be up in the air, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Really well said. That's, like I said, that's the biggest reason why I would want to go back is the resources. Because it's sometimes it's difficult because they gatekeep. They won't let you have access to stuff unless you're willing to shell out all this money, when if we really wanted to advance society, we probably should be making a lot of this stuff free, but that's not profitable. So
like you said about I can't remember, but I know at one point you said something, and I remembered that when I was doing my master's, I was doing it with nurses and people that worked in hospitals and social workers and everything else. But they were all really struggling, and I just breezed through it because it's like, I'm a teacher. I know that the education system, unfortunately, I'm a teacher. I'm allowed to say the education system is crap. It boxes. That's all it is. From the moment you put your child into nursery or preschool or school, every year you go to those parents' evenings and you get your reports, but it's literally just what a teacher has ticked off of a piece of paper. It's nothing. And that may be something positive that comes out of all this chaos at the moment, is that we realise that science and education and all of this is bullshit, and just reground and come back to what it should be, which is being a unique individual.
Exactly. I mean, I find it funny that a lot of these people who preach to trust the science don't even know that almost 90% of science is just all theories. I mean, a PhD, again, is a doctor of philosophy, not a doctor of science, not a doctor of factual evidence. But as you said, it's these people that are just peer reviewing their own shit who agree. And the reason they agree is because they're using articles written in the 1940s about what the body does. It's like absolutely insane. The medical and the educational fields today are very behind. And what we need to do if we want to advance as a society is we need to stop this, believe the doctors, believe the scientists mentality. Understand that these people are fallible. Understand that these people are probably old and could potentially have agendas of their own. And we need to start getting people who are really interested, who want to make new discoveries, who don't want to just research regurgitated old information, and they want to actually do new things, and they want to develop practical ways or medicines for people to take into their bodies. The fact that we can't talk about hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin or zinc or any of these because a lot of these like very easy, very natural medicines, they've been made practically illegal. But you got to make sure, especially in America, you can get your free weed and your free donut and your free burger and fries and your free $100. All you got to do is stand in line and get the jab. Just do it. Just do it. Just get it. Don't question it. Don't ask who made it. Just do it. Yeah. So that's where we're at right now in today's society. Yeah. But I wanted to say once again, thank you so much. I think we'll probably end up wrapping it up here just because of time and whatnot. But if you wanted to do a part 2, we absolutely could. It was a wonderful pleasure having you on here, Vicky. Is there any way that you could share with like the audience, just any way for people to kind of find you, find your social media, or find your book, or any like that? We're going to put the links down in the description below so you can go pick up her stuff. But is there any platforms you wanted to share with the audience?
I'd probably suggest my website, because I get emails straight come up on my phone as a ping. I do have an Instagram, but I really don't go on it very much, more just to check messages, because I get people messaging me a lot on there. But I got very addicted to Instagram at one point, so I've made a conscious choice to come away from that. So you can feel free to reach me out on Instagram. It's literally just my name, Victoria Loalou, Loalou. But the website, going on my website, which is the same, my name, and then just filling in a form or emailing me. And the big book, if anyone wants a free copy on PDF, if they email me to say they've seen this episode, then I can send them a free PDF copy.
Wow, that's awesome. Wow, it was special little promotions. Yeah, I love that. That's great. I actually have to pick up a copy. I have to get a copy of your newest book too, because I only have the smaller version, but I definitely want to get the bigger one too. Yeah. So, well, anyway, I wanted to say thank you, Vicky. It's been a pleasure having you. It's always a blessing to talk to somebody who knows a lot about like the sacred secretion and wants to share. Somebody with like that high energetic kind of footprint that has all this wisdom and this knowledge. It's a blessing, and for us it's a very humbling experience. So thank you for giving us your time today. If you enjoyed watching this video, you can like and subscribe. Go follow Vicky on all of her platforms. Go check out her website. Consider emailing her. Consider getting her books. They're on Amazon, and you can get them also through emailing her. So thank you, Vicky. Well, I know that we'll talk soon, and we'll stay in touch. It's always a pleasure making a new friend.
Thank you very much. You too.